the day he called me his maid. It was a warm Saturday afternoon, the kind that made the leaves on the mango tree outside our home dance lazily in the breeze. I had spent the morning cleaning the house, preparing my husband's favorite meal, and ironing his crisp white agbada for an event he had been excited about all week. Chaik, my husband of 5 years, had always been the charming type, tall, handsome, and with a laugh that could light up a room. I fell in love with him because he made me feel seen, cherished, and irreplaceable. Or so I thought. "Darling," Chaik called out as he buttoned his shirt. "I want you to come with me today. My business partner is hosting a little get-together, and it will be nice to have you there." I smiled. He rarely invited me to his social events, always saying they were too formal or not the kind of place for family. So this was special. "Of course," I said, smoothing the wrinkles from my Ankara dress. It wasn't flashy, but it was neat and modest, the kind of outfit a wife wears when she's proud to stand by her husband. As we got into the car, he seemed distracted, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel and glancing at his phone every few seconds. I brushed it off, thinking he was preoccupied with business matters. The event was being held at a luxurious home in the heart of the city. The house was sprawling, with glittering chandeliers visible through the tall windows and expensive cars lining the driveway. Chaik grabbed my hand as we walked in, his grip firm but different. "Just follow my lead," he muttered under his breath. I nodded, a little confused but trusting him nonetheless. As we entered, a woman emerged from the crowd, her laugh ringing out like a bell. She was stunning, tall, with flawless caramel skin, perfectly styled hair, and a figure that demanded attention. Her dress clung to her like it had been sewn directly onto her body, and when she smiled, it was the kind of smile that knew its power. "Chaik," she exclaimed, rushing over to hug him. Her long nails, painted a deep red, lingered on his shoulder just a little too long. "This must be the woman you've been telling me about," she said, turning to me with a sharp but polite smile. Before I could extend my hand to introduce myself, Chaik cut in. "Oh, yes," he said smoothly, "this is, our maid, Amora." I froze. My ears buzzed, and for a moment, I thought I had misheard him. Maid. He couldn't have meant me. But he wasn't looking at me. His eyes were fixed on the woman, as if my presence barely registered. The woman raised an eyebrow. "Your maid. She looks, well, never mind." She let out a tinkling laugh and turned back to Chaik, launching into a story about some boutique she had visited in Paris. My heart sank into my stomach. I stood there, awkward and shrinking, feeling the weight of every gaze in the room. Chaik didn't even glance in my direction. I wanted to cry, to scream, to grab him by the arm and demand to know what he thought he was doing. But instead, I did what I always did, I smiled. "Excuse me," I said softly, slipping away before the tears could betray me. I found myself in the kitchen, leaning against the counter as I tried to steady my breathing. The staff in the house moved around me, oblivious to my turmoil. For 5 years, I had been his wife. I had stood by him through thick and thin, supported his dreams, and loved him with every fiber of my being. And now, here I was, reduced to a nameless maid in front of some woman I had never met. I stayed in the kitchen for most of the evening, unwilling to go back out and face whatever humiliation awaited me. When Chaik finally found me, he looked annoyed. "What are you doing here?" he hissed. I straightened up, meeting his eyes. "Why did you introduce me as your maid?" He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Amora, don't make a scene. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal." My voice cracked. "You brought me here, to a place where I knew no one, and stripped me of my identity. I am your wife, Chaik. Or have you forgotten?" His face hardened. "You don't understand. That woman, her name is Gloria, is important to my business. She's wealthy, connected, and she doesn't respect family men. If she thought you were my wife, it could ruin everything. I stared at him, disbelief washing over me. So, to impress her, you had to degrade me. We drove home in silence. I stared out of the window, blinking back tears as the streetlights blurred past. When we got home, I didn't wait for him to open my door or help me out of the car. In our bedroom, I packed a small bag, my hands shaking. Amora, don't be dramatic, he said, leaning against the doorframe. I turned to him, my voice steady but low. You humiliated me, Chike. In that moment, you showed me exactly where I stand in your life. And it's not beside you, it's beneath you. He stepped forward, reaching for me. Amora, please. I love you. I made a mistake. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. Love doesn't make someone a maid in front of strangers. Love doesn't strip someone of their dignity. If you can't respect me, Chike, then you don't deserve me. I left that night, seeking refuge at my sister's house. It wasn't easy, explaining to my family, answering their questions, and confronting my own heartbreak. But with each passing day, I found strength. Chike called, begged, and even sent emissaries to plead on his behalf, but I couldn't go back. He had crossed the line that love alone couldn't repair. Months later, I stood in the mirror, adjusting the lapel of my blazer before heading to an interview. I had enrolled in a business program, determined to build a life for myself outside the shadow of someone else's dreams. As I stepped out into the sunlight, I smiled. I was no longer anyone's maid, not in title, and certainly not in spirit. This story is a reminder that love without respect is empty.